What up, y'all? Welcome to the Imperfect Action Show. Let me think about it. Today's Wednesday, right? So that means it's episode 43, which is crazy. I don't believe that. It's insane. But on the Imperfect Action Show, what do? We go over lessons, strategies, in business or marketing. We give you some information right now, literally in real time. You can take that, take some imperfect action, and see some changes in your business. So, on today's episode, I have an award-winning attorney. That's right, guys. She's gonna be breaking down business law 101 and probably get a little bit spicy on y'all. But Miss Rosetta Upshaw, Esquire, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Brendan. This is so exciting. It's going to be fun.
So if you guys pay attention to Rosetta, she be going crazy on the lives at nighttime. Nighttime with Zeta, that's what I like to call them. So I had to get her on the show today. So why don't you tell them a little bit about yourself, a little bit what you have going on, and while you're doing that, I'm gonna send a text to our community to let them know we are live.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. My name is Rosetta Upshaw. I am an award winning attorney. I have been practicing law for over 10 years, and I love working with businesses and entrepreneurs to help them use legal strategy to protect and increase their profits. So it's really important to me that people have good information, that they feel comfortable speaking with an attorney. I try to put a friendly face to the law so that people will feel comfortable reaching out, asking questions. I go live, I take questions from the audience because I want people to be informed and empowered. And it's just really, really important that business owners and entrepreneurs have an opportunity to focus on their business without getting blindsided by complicated, stressful, and expensive legal issues that they didn't see coming. Right? So many people, their first question is, when should I speak to a business lawyer? I have a business, I've been in business, I'm making money, or I'm about to start a business, whatever stage they're at. I get that question a lot. And I always tell people it's just like the question, when should you go to the doctor? Right? If you're not sure, if you haven't had a checkup in 10 years, you probably just want to go get a checkup, right? So there are lots of attorneys like myself who are on social media now, and we ask questions and we answer questions. There's lots of attorneys like myself who do free consultations. So my website is legendsatlaw.com, and you can book a free consultation. Tell me about your business, tell me about what you have going on, and I can let you know if I see, some areas for improvement when it comes to legal strategy, right? It's so important just to tap in, just talk to a lawyer and ask. So if you're not sure whether or not you need to speak to a business attorney, you need to speak to a business attorney, right? Find a lawyer that you feel comfortable with, talk to them, and get some direction about making some smart strategic moves in your business.
So what I wanted to ask you real quick, I think you kind of touched on it when you were like, if you think that you need a checkup, or if you're wondering when you should talk to an attorney, that's probably when you should. But if someone's starting their business, right, or maybe you've been running your business, and you had to give them, because it may be appropriate because we're talking about business law 101. But if you had to say, okay, this is your business law bundle in a box,
Yes.
right? If there's
Yeah.
3, 4, 5 things, what are 3, 4, 5 things that every business needs or should have set in place at some point, either when they just starting off, or if they've been running and they need to double back and make sure they have certain things secured.
Awesome question. So there are three things that are so important that I discuss with every client. So the first is structure. So that's your LLC, your corporation. So many businesses are out here running and they have, profits, they have an amazing business, an amazing brand, but they don't have a corporate structure, and that means that they are liable in their business. And that's not where you want to be, right? So if something goes left in your business and you don't have a corporate structure to protect you and to separate your personal assets from your business assets, that means they can come after your house, they can come after your personal bank account, and everything that you own because you didn't separate the two, right? So sometimes people say, oh, well, I already have my accountant and everything looks good in my taxes and I'm saving money. Okay, but you need to be protected, and you need to separate your business and your personal finances to really operate a legitimate business. So corporate structure is one. The second is intellectual property. So many people are very creative. They have a catchy name. They have a lovely brand that's very attractive, and they're successful because they have, a super cool name that they came up with in their business, and taglines and catchphrases, names for shoes, names for dresses, names for lip glosses, names for all sorts of things that they don't own. And now with the internet, with websites, with social media, everything is global. So anyone could see your idea, see the names and the phrases that you use, and take them if you don't protect your intellectual property with trademark protection and copyright protection. So I,
I had a quick question about that, right? Because I want people to really understand this. So when we're talking intellectual property, I know you touched on like taglines, catchphrases, some
yeah,
names, but specifically, what is the intellectual? What is the IP? Like, what are all the things that can get trademarked and copywritten, just so they have a great understanding of what would be deemed IP?
awesome. So I get the question a lot about the difference between trademarks and copyright. So in general, intellectual property is what you create, right? It's the content in your course. It's the name of your business, the name of your brand, right? So if I start a business called Rosetta's Cupcakes, and that's my brand, I can trademark that name, right, and own that name. If I have a bunch of cute names for the different cupcakes, right? So if I have strawberry surprise and chocolate delight and very unique names, I can copyright those names, right? I can own that content. If I create a course on how to start a dessert business and I have different modules and I have videos, I can copyright that content. So it's really important to make sure I tell my clients anything that you would not want to see someone else take and copy, right? So if I would feel some type of way if somebody else had Rosetta's cupcakes and they were selling cupcakes, then I need to trademark that, right? If I am not attached to it and I'm like, oh, perfect, make your own Rosetta's cupcakes, then I tell my clients, it doesn't sound like you need a trademark. And I have clients like that, especially in the metaverse and things like that, where they want it to be open and free. But if you would feel some type of way, if you saw somebody with the same name of your cupcakes, with the same content of the course, with the same name brand, you need to protect that. So when it comes to the brand, the tagline, I love to use Nike as an example of the difference between trademarks and copyrights, right? So we all know Nike, the Nike, the swoosh, and just do it. All of those identify the brand. So those are protected under trademark protection, right? Because when you see just do it, it doesn't have to say Nike, it doesn't have to have a swoosh. You know what business that is. You don't have to see the whole name to know the business. That's why it's a trademark, right? So the names of the shoes, again, any other content, videos, websites, pictures, things like that would fall under copyright protection. So most businesses need both, especially nowadays. There's so many coaches, there's so many successful entrepreneurs who turn back around and try to help other people create their same success, right? They teach, they coach, they mentor, they have communities. So when you're putting out content in your communities, right? When you have a system, modules. This is step one. This is step two. This is step three. You've put some things together. You've created something. You can own that creation. You can protect it with copyright protection. And that is really, really important. And people always ask, well, what about poor man's copyright? Can I just mail it to myself or email myself? Unfortunately, no, it doesn't work that way, right? It's really important that you understand that you need legitimate protection. You want the protection of the federal government behind you. You really want to be able to take someone to court, to take them to task, and really protect yourself. Federal copyrights do that for you. Federal trademarks do that for you. You can, tap the government in and say, hey, help me handle this. And the government's like, oh, we gave you that certificate. We gave you that certificate of ownership over that phrase, that brand, that content. We're going to back you up if someone tries to take it, right? You don't want it to just be you against someone. Oh, I emailed myself. I created this first. That's not where you want to be. And as an attorney, people come to me with huge problems sometimes, and it is heartbreaking to see someone who crafted this amazing business, this amazing content, this intellectual property, and because they didn't own it, now other people are siphoning off of their goodwill and everything they've built, right? So intellectual property is so important because, like I tell people, how would you feel if someone was out there saying, "Oh, my show is the Imperfect Action Show. This is the real Imperfect Action Show." No, 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 no. If this is something you care about, if this is your brand, you want to take that step to own it and protect it, right? So we talked about corporate structure, we talked about intellectual property, and I love talking about agreements. So contracts, written documentation. There's so many people out here operating businesses without good written documentation, right? And I do custom agreements to protect my clients, to make sure that expectations are clear, that they are, held responsible, and the other party is held responsible to whatever that agreement is supposed to be, right? But I tell people, if you cannot afford to have an attorney create a custom agreement for you and you want to use templates, please start there. Please start there. Any transaction that is a significant amount of money for you, whatever that amount is, if it's 200, 2,000, 20,000, there needs to be documentation. The same thing. Think about how you would feel if this transaction didn't work out, whether you're the one spending the money or whether you're supposed to receive the money. So if someone was supposed to pay you $1,000 and they didn't, and there's nothing in writing, right? Versus if you were supposed to pay somebody or you did pay somebody $1,000 and you didn't get what you paid for, and there's nothing in writing, right? Those are very problematic situations. You want to protect yourself. I love creating custom agreements for my clients and then showing them how to, tweak them in different situations and be able to get a lot of use and utility out of them when they're engaging in their business. So that means high ticket customers. If you have a customer who's spending a lot of money, they have expectations, you want to make it clear what they're getting, when the money's due, very important things, right? And those are the three main points I touch on when it comes to business law. So corporate structure, intellectual property, and contracts and agreements, right? And I always give a bonus plug, little bonus, a little something extra. We got to talk about trust, right? We got to talk about protecting your wealth with an estate plan. So, business is a great path to wealth. It is so exciting, and I love to see entrepreneurs out here, building. It's amazing and it's so important. And we want to make sure that the legacy that you build gets passed to the next generation, gets passed to your family how you want it to, however you want it to pass. So, what happens is when families don't have a trust, they have to go through probate court. Probate court, even if you have a will, you have to go to probate court. It is expensive, it is time consuming, it is stressful, and it can be avoided with a trust, right? So I always tell people if you have any type of asset that you want to pass to your family, be it a house, a business, a sizable bank account, you should make sure you have a trust so that that goes smoothly, right? And the more money you have, the more strategic you can be about different types of trust and structure. But everybody needs a basic trust to protect their assets and to avoid probate court. I can't tell you how heartbreaking it is to see families come to probate court and they're blindsided by the fees. Especially here in California, where real estate is very expensive. So I want to be clear. If you have a house and it has to get passed through probate court, The court is going to assess the value of the house and take a percentage in fees, right? And that value is not how much you pay for it, it's not how much you have left on the mortgage, is how much that house would sell for that day, right? So typically that's the highest number.
Why they gotta get some of that money too? That's why we need these trust people.
So yeah, I'll get off my soapbox, but I always have to say that because that information needs to be out there for everybody. Make sure you tap in with an attorney. Again, trying to put a friendly face to the law so you feel comfortable seeking out help, having these conversations so that you can be protected.
All right, guys, real quick, let's just do a quick little recap, and then we got a question from the community, right? So, your business law bundle, right? If you're just starting off, the foundational pieces that you need to put in place. We're talking about business structure, LLCs, corporate structures, getting your intellectual property together, trademarks, copyrights, having agreements, especially if you have higher ticket items, right? But even if you got low ticket items, it's still good to have a contract and agreement, and then trust because you want to pass that on to your people, leave that legacy. You don't want to be in a situation where you have to pay these astronomical fees just because the house is in probate and you got to go through that process. So I think those are amazing. Make sure you guys have your business law bundle. I'm so excited that you actually broke that down. It's really so clear now that you can see it. It's four pieces that at least gives you the foundation. Okay, so we got a question from Chandra. She asks, does an invoice serve as an acceptable financial agreement? And this is funny too, because if you watched Rosetta the other day, she was talking about receipts, right? You was talking about receipts, so that's what that made me think of. So yeah, Chandra's question: does an invoice serve as an acceptable financial agreement?
Awesome question. So an invoice is great. It is very, very useful when the transaction is simple, right? So when it can operate like a receipt. When it comes to more detailed services and situations where a client has certain expectations and deliverables that have some details, you want to have a written agreement. So the example I like to use is photography because we all need content. We all need awesome photos. So pretty much every business owner and entrepreneur is going to hire a photographer at some point, right? So here's the difference. Imagine you and your photographer just have an invoice. And typically an invoice is pretty general, right? It'll say, photography services, $300 and a date, maybe even 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Very general, right? Versus an agreement that would be a lot more detailed and would have more detail about what you're entitled to. So person's going to show up on time. If they're late, is it being rescheduled? Is there some type of penalty? Are you getting your money back? Is there a discount? The photos are going to be delivered to you by this date and time. If they're late, are you getting your money back? Is there some type of discount or penalty? Right? Are you paying half up front and half when you get the photos? Right? Those type of details would be in an agreement. If they come and there's an issue, maybe with the set, are you entitled to a refund? Are you entitled to a reschedule? Right? So just different important details would be in an agreement that typically wouldn't be in an invoice.
Got you. So, and going back to that, you were saying if you're just starting out, if you don't have a custom situation, you could definitely take advantage of using the template to kind of just get going.
Right.
And I think that's so important because I do like to say taking that imperfect action and moving is great because at least you're building that momentum. But I think as soon as you understand things like these foundational pieces that are gonna legitimate, you know, um, make your business a little bit more legitimate, operate on a little higher level, you'll actually, at least I think, when you start dealing with your clients moving forward, when you have these pieces, they're gonna look at you a little different as well. Like, okay, yeah, he really has his stuff together. She really has his stuff together. Oh wow, there's a formal agreement. I can see everything. So you're actually giving them more value as well, right? Because generally in the marketplace, they may not deal with a competitor that may have, the I's dotted and the T's crossed as well. So it's a separating factor, but then at the same time, it gives you again that foundation, that you need to move forward. If you guys have any other questions for Rosetta, drop them in the chat. We're talking about business law 101. And I actually have another question for you myself. So what are typical things that most, let's say, entrepreneur business owners get surprised at? Like they just didn't, maybe they didn't pay any attention, and they kind of get blindsided by something because they didn't have something simple in order. Maybe they didn't know. What would one or two of those things be?
So a lot of people are confused that the poor man's copyright is not really a thing. They
Mm,
create content, they create posts, even captions get stolen, different phrases and things that clearly they created, you know. They know that, they created this, nobody else had this before, and now they see it out in the world and they're blindsided by like, oh wow, I thought this was just something I was doing. It went viral, people love it, and the greatest, the most sincerest form of flattery is imitation. Excuse me. So people start imitating and stealing, and without that copyright protection in advance, you're at a huge, huge disadvantage. And the same thing with trademarks. Trademarks are first come, first serve.
yes.
So if the federal government grants somebody else the trademark, even though you may have invented it or started it first, you're at a huge disadvantage. There's typically not much you can do, right? And so I love talking about intellectual property because I don't want that to happen to entrepreneurs because we're so creative. People are coming up with some amazing names and some amazing brands. And so another important thing is non-disclosure agreements.
Mm,
It makes a huge difference when you have people sign non-disclosure agreements. So let's go back to the photographer example, right? So in the agreements that I create, it's very detailed. You're going to get the raw photos on this date. You're going to get this many edited photos on this date. You're going to have this many revisions. Those type of things typically aren't in an invoice, right? And also, you want to have that photographer sign a non-disclosure agreement. You want to have details about what they can and cannot do with your photos, right? Can they share it with other people? Can they use it in their portfolio only? Can they post it on their social media? What can they do with your photos, right? If you just have an invoice, it's probably not clear. And technically, you want to talk about surprises, technically, the photographer owns the photos, right? So copyright protection is meant to protect the artist, the creator. And it's really based on musicians, artists. We all know the history of musicians getting, underpaid for their work, and the music labels and everybody else making a ton of money off the art that they create. So copyright protection was amended with that in mind. So it heavily, heavily protects the creator. As soon as you create something, you as the creator own that copyright. You still need to register that copyright to be able to fully enforce it, but technically you own it, right? So if there's no agreement where that photographer is transferring those copyrights to you, that photographer technically owns your photos. And so if you didn't have them sign an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, if you didn't have them sign an agreement for services that makes it clear that you own the copyright, even though they're the artist, then you really don't have a strong case if you want to stop them from using the photos in some way that you didn't want.
That's a big one right there. Because I think when people hire videographers and photographers, like you said, they just do the hey, here's the payment, or here's the invoice. Generally, they don't even do that, right? They just do the cash app memo situation, and then you get your assets. But then typically, you're right. Like that photographer or videographer can literally just take those photos and do whatever they want because you don't have that clear NDA signed or an agreement signed. That's a big one right there. I'm so happy that you shared that. I mean, I just got some photos back right now, and typically, yeah, she can go do whatever she want with those. Not no more though. Not no more. Um, so we got a couple more questions. Then I wanted to kind of give you a real life situation that I went through and get your opinion on that because I think it would help people to hear it. So next question we have is, excuse me, what kind of lawyers help with trademark?
So, intellectual property lawyers like myself, business lawyers like myself, I also created a trademark course. Link is in my bio on my Instagram page because I tell people, again, take imperfect action. I actually have a lot of clients who do their trademark application themselves, and maybe it wasn't perfect, and they get an office action. The federal government asks them to amend something, and then they hire me to correct their application, right? So you can file your own trademarks. I have clients who have successfully taken my trademark course and filed their own trademark. So you can do it yourself as well. I think it's really important, to have that information to be empowered because one thing that people don't realize often, and this is something that can blindside people, is there are 45 different categories of trademarks,
Yes, there are.
right? So for most businesses, one trademark doesn't give the full protection, right? So if you're selling T-shirts and you're selling, a course, and you're selling, leather goods, those are all separate categories from the federal government, right? So they're separate trademarks. So technically, you would need three different trademarks to fully protect that business, right? And people are just like, oh wow, like I thought I only needed one. Attorneys charge thousands of dollars for these trademarks. I can't afford three, four, five, right? So I created the trademark course for that reason because sometimes people need more than one and it can get very expensive. People pay 5, 10, 15, 20K for all the trademarks they need to protect their business. And if you're Nike, that's not a big deal, right? Nike probably has 25 different categories of trademarks, right? They probably have hundreds of trademarks, different things in different categories. But for a lot of startup businesses, a lot of entrepreneurs, they can't afford to pay an attorney to do 20, 25 trademarks. So being able to have that skill, be comfortable filling out the application, I tell people it's just paperwork. There's strategy involved, and I go into the strategy in the course and how to do the search and things like that. But you can also do the trademark yourself. But an intellectual property attorney, a business attorney can file your trademarks for you.
So we got a couple more questions, and guys, I actually put the link for her trademark course below. So if you're gonna watch the playback of this episode, it'll be right there for you. So another question we have is: are copyrights usually for literature?
So copyright protection is vast. You can copyright videos, you can copyright literature, you can copyright art, you can copyright, different logos. All sorts of things can fall under copyright protection. It's very broad. It is a creation in a fixed medium. So anything, it can't be an idea, right? So if you, let's say you have an idea for a TV show, you would have to write that down, create, some type of script, and you can copyright that. So it's very vast. It's not just written words, not just documents. It is art. It is visual mediums. It's sounds, right? You can have copyright protection over music. It is very vast. It's a creation.
So another question we have is there a timeline for a trademark when it comes to putting out a product? Should it come out before? How does it take? How long does it take to become active once started?
So that is an awesome question. I get this question so much. So there's different ways you can do it. When you're filing your trademark application, you can file an application for a trademark that you're already using, or you can file an application for a trademark that you plan to use in the future, right? So that's a 1A application or a 1B application. I recommend that my clients do a 1A application, which is I'm already using this trademark. My business relies on this trademark. You need to give it to me, right? Versus this is something I came up with. I'm going to do a 1B application. I might use it in the future. I'm just trying to lock it down and be first in line. That's fine. But it is a lot more streamlined if you do a 1A application when you're already using the trademark. So for me, I tell my clients to do it back to back. Do your launch and your trademark application back to back. So have that application ready when you go to the uspto.gov website. If you're on my course, if you're doing it yourself, you can fill the application out and save it, right? You can launch your business, have your sales, and then finish the application and submit it same day, same week, right? So you can do it simultaneously, you can do it back to back, or you do have the option to say, you know what, I'm about to launch this business. I want to start the trademark application. I want to do a 1B intent to use application to lock it in and then go forward. So that is a less streamlined process. The federal government has to come back with an office action and say, hey, prove to us that you're using this. So basically what happens is the federal trademark protection is very strong. It's very serious. You get a deed, right? It's like a deed to a house. You get a certificate. You own this, right? It is serious. So they don't want to just give it out to anybody and lock up cool names and cool ideas that are not being used. So part of the requirement to actually get the trademark is to prove that you use it, right? In your business, that you use it as a brand. So if you do a 1B application intent to use, you automatically still have to follow up and show that you're using it. If you do a 1A application saying I'm already using it, you can submit everything at once and be done. And those are the most streamlined applications. The application process takes 12 months. That's the average, right? Even for a smooth one, right? Because again, it's very serious. The federal government takes it serious because again, they're like, if someone infringes on your intellectual property, we got your back. Like we are coming with the heat. So we're not giving this out frivolously. We want to make sure that this is real. That you really need this. You really need to lock down this name in your business so nobody else can use it in the entire country, right? So I tell people try to do it back to back. Launch your business, get your sales, because part of the proof is you putting down the date you had your first interstate commerce sales, right? So not a local sale, somebody in another state has to purchase from you under that brand in order to prove to the federal government that you need federal protection in the whole country and own this brand.
Wow, that was crazy. I mean, you really just broke everything down with the 1A and the 1B. I could see how someone would be attracted to a 1B, especially if you're like, I'm not really ready to kind of make that move. But I could definitely, actually see why, excuse me, the 1A would be probably where you want to go. Now, and I could see, why you would be suggesting that. So we're a little over time. So if it's okay, I have something that I would like to let you know that I went through. Get your feedback on that. Is that cool?
Yes, please.
All right, because I think it can help somebody. So, I used to have a clothing brand, right? And it was culturally impactful. I would probably be a multimillionaire on the clothing brand if I would have had you in my life back then. So, we did have the logos copyrighted. We paid about 15K for the logos, right? You were talking about Nike, just do it. So ours was a bike icon logo, society backwards, which was the iconography logo, and then we had a phrase as well. So we moving and grooving, things is cool. We actually revolutionized and created a brand new style that is used today. We didn't know what we were doing. We didn't have the guidance. So I want people to kind of understand. So what we did was we sat down with a buyer of a clothing company, and he's talking, looking at the trends and everything. We're like, yo, we need to create. Um, he's like, this is not in the marketplace. If we can create a sweatpant, right, that has the ribbing at the bottom, which are now known as joggers. So we invented the jogger sweat. Now, what should we have done? Because what happened was we just came out with it. Oh, new style, boom, it's out, it's available. But because it was so popular, every big retailer, monster retailers, like it's part of their normal, rollout for bottoms. So what should we have done in that situation? Because I want to give some real gems to people that are watching this, so they're not in the situation that we were in. We created a style that was revolutionary in fashion, right? So what should we have done to protect that intellectual property in that design?
I want you to get your money, man. You invented an iconic piece of fashion. My younger brother wears joggers all the time, and he looks great in them. I will
Yeah.
think of you every time I see them now. So I don't expect anyone to be a legal expert and to know exactly, what they need. Because in that circumstance, I would assume that, the average person probably wouldn't even know that they could own that and have intellectual property over that fashion design. So, yes, when you create something, you can copyright it. And sometimes, if it's special and new enough, you can even patent fashion, right? If you come up with something that's new enough, it may be able to be a patent for you, right? But at the very least, copyright protection, which is really important when you want to license it. So if you own it and then everybody else wants to use it, you can have them pay you a licensing fee, basically a royalty.
It would have been, we would have been out of here.
Right. And so, again, I'm not expecting people to know how all the different intellectual property protection works. But what I do encourage people to do is talk to an attorney on a regular basis, the same way you get a regular checkup and say, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm working on. These are some of the issues I'm having. How can the law help me? Right. And so when you're talking to an attorney and sharing everything with them, we're always like, don't leave anything out, like overshare. Tell me everything because there's things like that. So you can say, oh, hey, I have a clothing line and we're working on getting into some stores. Did you tell your attorney that you invented a new type of pant? Right? It would be so important for the attorney to know that information. So they can say, oh, wait a minute, how is it really something new and fresh? Let me see. Like, oh, wow, I've never seen this before. You need to protect this. You need to protect this intellectual property. This is a creation, right? Let me see if we can patent this. Let me see if it meets the qualifications under the law. Let the attorney do the legal research and see what type of protection you need. But it's your job just to talk to your attorney. That's why it's so important that you have somebody that you feel comfortable with because you need to tell them everything so they can really thoroughly help you. If you leave important things out because you just didn't know how important it was, you're really, doing yourself a disservice. So what you need to do is find an attorney that you feel comfortable with and talk to them and let them know, let them in. This is what I'm going through. This is what's going on in my life, in my business. And they can say, oh, you need this, you need that, stay away from this, stop doing that, change this. And there you go. They can help you with the right strategy and the right plan. So Brandon, I'm going to think of you every time I see some joggers. Man, those are so cool. You are so talented and creative. And next time you invent an iconic piece of fashion, please let me know.
Trust me. I really wanted to share that because I wanted people to really get an understanding of like this business law foundational bundle that you just talked about. Grab that trademarking course. You know what I mean? Learn more about copyrights and patents. Like these are things that they're not typically the first or second, even the third thing that most entrepreneurs or just business owners think about, but they're really, really more important than the thing that you're gonna do. So I wanted to share that just to let people know, like my real experience. in how like I fumbled a huge bag by doing that, but it's because I didn't know and because I didn't have a relationship with with an attorney like yourself, which is extremely important that people that are watching this, whether you're watching it live or watching the playback, definitely something you need to start implementing into your business, like having that business attorney that you can email, text, follow up with, maybe monthly or quarterly check-ins or whatever the case is going to be. So I want to first thank you for coming on the show. I've had so many shows, and I can honestly say this is definitely top three. This is definitely one of my favorite shows.
Thank
You know, a
you.
lot of shows have, you know, it be the energy or the information or the excitement, whatever. But this episode can really change someone's life and really set up their business for success and allow them to not lose money and be protected when they're out there going in the world and doing business. So I want to thank you for coming on the episode. Thank you for sharing everything you've been sharing. If you have any other things that you want to share, or just let people know where they can find you, where they can tap in. I know you mentioned the course, but you know whatever else you have going on, please let us know.
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you so much for having me. This has been so much fun. And this is so sharp and professional. You know, I've done several interviews. I feel like I'm on CNN right now. This is very high quality.
Thank you.
So kudos to you. And, you know, you have my number. So I'm very glad that, you know, we can have these conversations, get this information out there. But that also personally, I can make sure that you never go through that again. To get all your coins, right? And make sure you're protected. So I want to encourage everybody to go to my website, legendsatlaw.com, and book a free consultation. I know you have questions. You know, people want a private setting to discuss some things. Book a consultation and let's have a conversation. Let me share some game with you. I love giving away free game. I do it on live all the time. So make sure you're following me at Rosetta Upshaw, at Legends at Law on Instagram. I go live, I answer questions. I want people to be able to tap in with an attorney. I have all my attorney friends on there. I'm here in California and I was president of Black Women Lawyers Association. I know thousands of lawyers all across the country. You know, I was a national scholar my first year as an attorney, and I've received, you know, top 40 under 40 awards from the National Black Lawyer Association. I'm tapped in. Anything you need, I can help you or I can get you connected to someone who can help you. I want everyone to be protected. I want to make sure that all we have is success stories, right? Everybody out here winning, thriving, being protected. Um, I just want to help. So please tap in. I look forward to speaking with you.
Word. And look, she said it, yo. Stizzo actually, um, she doubled down on it. And Perfect Action Show definitely needs a trademark, so we're gonna put that in play. You guys already know what it is. We see you guys tomorrow. Make sure that you follow Rosetta Upshaw on Instagram and also check out legendsatlaw.com. This has been an impactful episode. If you missed anything, it will be available on YouTube immediately. If you're watching the replay, we appreciate you. Make sure you click the link below, grab that trademark course, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Bye.